Hello and welcome to the show. It is April, April 28th, 2024. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I know that we've got a topic already and we've already got some callers. I'm really excited about that. Before I dive into the topic, I have a little bit of housekeeping I just want to shoot through. First off, I want to open this up. This is a call-in show and I'd love to talk to you. I set the topic today is it possible to be good as a non-believer? What is goodness? I'm going to dive into that topic. You know what? Honestly, let's dive into it now. And while I do, let me give the number here. The phone number to call in is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or if you like that nice, crisp, clean audio, you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. And you can call in online. Either way, it is free for you. Part of what goes into making the show is making sure that we are taking on those fees. And we are happy to do so. I am happy to do so because, well, I want to have these conversations. I'll save other housekeeping things for later. Let's just dive right into the topic, shall we? So when it comes to being good, what does it mean to be good? Well, I think that I would be remiss not to talk about the kind of religious background that I have around it to get started. As a believer, being good was something that we were told we were commanded to do. To help one another felt good to do, and it felt like a reflection of this goodness that we felt was kind of imbued in us as being representatives of Christ on earth. And so doing that was kind of just you acting as a mirror, reflecting that goodness outward into the world. But when it came to deconstruction, when it came to really thinking about it, turns out there's a whole lot more to it. Because ideas around goodness, right? This isn't epistemic. This isn't how we think about what how we believe what we believe. This is our goals. These are our oughts. These are our axioms. And how do I describe it? We had this notion that we needed to be humble. We needed to be charitable. We needed to have these principles of course I'm losing the word well, that's embarrassing, but this happens with the live show, so I'm sure that it'll get called out in the live chat. But regardless, if you were doing them only because you were commanded to, or if you were doing them simply because you were an automaton that was reflecting some other person's ideals, then you're not demonstrating, you're not showing that you have those ideals. And so are you being good, or are you just reflecting what somebody else wants you to do? If you have a robot feed the homeless, is that robot a good robot, or is it simply doing what it was programmed, right? When it comes to being charitable as someone who is not a believer, you have to ask yourself why. And for a lot of people, they think, well, it's because it makes me feel good. And there's this idea that if it makes you feel good, you're not doing it for the right reasons. And that kind of drives me nuts, because as a believer, if I'm going to be honest, I wasn't doing it for the right reasons either. There is a price on that behavior. There's a social incentive that you get for acting that way and feeling good about yourself and being commended by your peers is a great reward for acting charitably. And so, is it actually possible to act in a completely selfless way? And if it was, is that what we would want? That's kind of where I'm going from here. I have a couple of callers already. It looks like it is a Texas day. Both of our callers are from Texas. I would love to get more people in here who have other thoughts. One more time before I hop into our first call. Otherwise, it's just going to be a Texas day. 412-SKEPGEN, that's 412-753-7436, or tiny.cc/SKEPGEN, that's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Link is also in the live chat because the mods are on it because they're amazing. Let's go ahead and talk to our first caller for the day, John in Texas. John, you are live. How's it going?
Going great. How are you doing today?
I am feeling funny. I obviously already have strong opinions about this, but I feel like if I don't open the topic up to be talked about, it's not gonna be. So I'm interested in what you have to say. Or did you want to talk about something else?
No. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. I saw the title of today's show, and I was just thinking, it's not just possible for you to be a good person as a non-believer. You can be a better person being a non-believer.
Really?
Yes, because whenever I was a believer, now that I think back on it, I was always very angry. I was always judgmental, and and it always consumed me. What I thought was just a jealous rage at the world was actually hatred that I was harboring in my heart. And now that I'm a non-believer, I've kind of let it go. I've become more empathetic. I've become kinder. I have wanted to help people a lot more. And I just feel so much better now as a non-believer than I did as a believer. And it's like you were saying, I think that we are naturally good, but I think that sometimes religion makes us think that we're being good when in reality we're just damaging.
You know, three things actually, really quickly, before my ADHD completely forgets them. First off, if you can speak any closer to the mic, you're coming in a little low. I'm doing my best to kind of mitigate it on my end, but it's just a little low. The second is I remember the word. The word is altruism, and that goes into the third point, and that is we have someone in the live chat saying good at what? I guess we haven't really defined good, have we?
Yeah, I saw that too. Can you hear
So
me better now or no?
absolutely, you're sounding great. So
Okay,
so
yeah.
so
I'm just saying, like, being a good person.
yeah, but what does that mean? What is being a good person?
Being Okay, I would say that being a good person is being more empathetic towards our fellow people, um, being kinder, more understanding,
Okay.
um, and creating a positive environment for everybody else to be in and to enjoy, instead of uniting instead of dividing, that kind of a
Hmm.
thing.
I could definitely, like, if I were to list good things or good characteristics and then, label them onto a person, yeah, I would consider those to be good things. By the way, I also remembered the word. The word is altruism that I was going for. So you definitely hit me with the Christianese. When you started talking, you said you had this hatred in your heart. These things that are sitting on your heart and sitting on your well, you know how we would talk about it. But when you say you had this hatred, my first thought is that a believer would be listening and going, "Oh, that's why he's an atheist. He's just full of anger."
Right, but at the time I thought it was righteous anger. I would not have admitted that it was hatred at the time, but now I do realize that it was hatred, and I just remember being so judgmental, being so closed-minded, thinking that the only way was God's way,
Mhm.
and it just made me so miserable.
Well,
But once I started to not believe anymore, like the I was able to release all the hatred from the bottle, and now I just feel so much better, and I just feel that I'm a much more positive person now than whenever I was a believer. Because when I was a believer, I even preached. I went. I made many trips. but I also I rebuked people very harshly back whenever I was a Christian, even to other Christians. I was one of those people that said, no, you're going to go to hell if you don't repent. And even to people in the wrong denomination, in my eyes, I was always telling them, you're going to go to hell too. And I thought it was my responsibility to not only preach the gospel to non-believers, but also to preach it to people that were in the wrong denomination, according to me.
Well, I'm
And
definitely.
I just felt like I had a lot on my shoulders, but it was an unnecessary burden.
I totally understand. I think what I want to kind of help you deconstruct a little bit here, a little bit more, is I don't think that it's necessarily a lack of belief that makes you a better person, because I know plenty of non-believers who are absolute shitheads.
Oh yeah, me too.
And
What I'm trying to say is, I think that me deconverting helped me become a better person because it helped me to become more empathetic. It helped me to realize that I am no different than anybody else. That I am just, and that I want to see a better world, and I want to be a better person to create a better world, to create a better environment, to make. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
no, that's okay. I'm happy to jump in. That's interesting. So you feel like you're more on the same level as everybody else. It says in the notes here that you think it's possible to be better as a non-believer than as a believer. You know, and when we're talking about better, we're talking about, I know goodness is a very, very nebulous word. And so let's use altruism, right? Doing something because it's the right thing, or doing something without any reward back. Do you think that altruism can exist?
Yes, I do. I 100% agree with that term.
Really?
Also, yes, and now that I realize that I'm only going to live one life, I want to make the best of it. But I don't want to just make the best of it for me. I want to make the best of it for the people that are around me.
Why?
The reason why is, well, I guess now as an atheist, my thinking is that which I wouldn't want done to me, I wouldn't do to others. So I just don't do to others what I wouldn't want done to me. And now I just try to treat everybody the way that I want to be treated. And I feel that it's worked a whole lot better for me. Made me a lot happier, makes other people around me happier, and it creates more positivity and more harmony.
So it sounds like you're doing good things because you want that reciprocated.
I guess you could say that, yes.
And
but
so,
also it's just, I just want to be a good person. I just want to do good. And I want...
Okay, so if you had no expectation of reciprocation, would you still be as motivated to do good things?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I would still be good if I would still do my very humanly possible best to be a good person, even without expecting others to be good back to me. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to set an example.
Yeah. So the reason I'm pushing back so much here is, after talking to so many people who believe differently than you and I, you know, getting challenged on it, it does take a lot of reflection. And I think that personally, there is some incentive lost when you are treated poorly and you're doing your best to treat other people well, you know?
If it's okay, I'd like to respond to a comment in the chat.
Oh, which
the dude says, so frustrating, caller won't identify which church that made caller angry.
Oh.
I just want to say I was raised in the Church of Christ.
Got it. Yeah.
So go ahead, Eric. I just wanted to answer that question from the chat.
No, I appreciate it. Anyway, sorry. Effective altruism and all of that. Okay, let me dive in here. I do think it is disincentivizing when you don't get reciprocation for treating other people in a good way. That doesn't mean that you
it is frustrating.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that you stop doing that. But I also don't think that it's necessarily altruism. Because if I do something that makes me feel like a good person, my brain is just dropping feel-good chemicals, right? I'm making myself feel like I am the kind of person I want to be. And in doing so, there is a reward that I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for its own sake necessarily. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good as a person. It makes me feel like I am closer to the best version of myself than I was before. And so could it still be considered altruism if it makes you feel good? And do you need to feel necessarily bad or indifferent for altruism to be considered altruism?
That's a really deep thought, Eric. I'm definitely gonna have to think about that. I guess I was thinking, okay, I like to be a good person because I just want to spread goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're making me think. Well, I also want to feel good, and I know that that can be interpreted as selfish, but I'm also a human, so I
Yeah.
want to feel good, but I also want to make others feel good.
Well, those are not in opposition to each other. The uncomfortable fact is that when I help people and I do things that make my community better, they make me feel good. What we have to deal with is this indoctrination that makes us believe that because it makes us feel good, it is somehow invalid. It is incredibly valid. What I want to do is promote the validity of it and to say, hey, these things that we're doing, to be kind to our neighbors, to invest in those around us and help them when they're down, I like all of those things, right? Being kind, being honest when it's called for, all of these things are things that both make us feel good and make the world around us better. And that does not invalidate it. I think we have this idea of altruism that's still so deeply tied to a religious mindset that we don't allow ourselves to feel good about it still. We're somehow still paying penance for our indoctrination. And I think that in talking about it, we can kind of take that power back. I think that you should feel absolutely wonderful about it. And that doesn't make you any less of a good person. And it doesn't invalidate any of the good things that you do. In fact, I think that it is an incredibly powerful human experience. And I don't think we should cut ourselves off from it.
Right. And I guess what I want to do is maximize the human experience for everybody.
Maybe not all of it. Maybe not all of it, but definitely the human flourishing and well-being parts for sure. Yeah. I appreciate you kind of letting, being the springboard that the rest of these pieces can fall into place for. We've definitely gotten a few more callers since those questions have been asked. And, John, I gotta say, I really appreciate your honesty there. When you say, hey, I've got to think about this, I think it says a lot about you as a person.
Right. Well, thank you. And yes, I am now very open-minded. So as a non-believer, then whenever I was a believer and very closed-minded inside of the dogmas that I defended according to 1 Peter 3:15. So thank you very much for your opinions. Thank you for rebutting me a little bit as well.
Hey.
But I do take take it positively as something to think about.
I'm
Thank
glad.
you very much, Eric.
Hey, thank you, and I really appreciate you. I hold on. The 1 Peter 3:15, is that the having reason to explain why you have the joy in your heart, right?
Yes, the faith that is in me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure I'm on
always
the same.
have a defense ready.
Have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
was
The
the passage
apologetic
that I
passage.
lived by.
Really?
Yes, because whenever I was a believer, I always wanted to defend God's word before any foe. And I did use the word foe because non-believers and people who were of different denominations, in my opinion, were my enemy.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because I was for God and they were against God, according to my opinion back then.
Well, hey, I'm glad for literally any reason you have to be a good person, but I'm also glad that you're questioning the world around you and striving to be better consistently. I think that is an admirable trait. So, John, thank you, and thank you for watching the show.
All right, I will join you in the after show later. Thank you very much, Eric, for your comments towards me as well.
Thank you. Take care. That is right. So consistently since restarting the show, I have been doing an after show on Discord for anybody who wants to join. The link is in the description. Come join on Discord. It's much more relaxed. There are fewer people there. Let her hair down. I'm able to answer questions and kind of get into things a little more nitty gritty sometimes. In some ways that I'm not necessarily ready to talk about on the air like this. It is free and available. Come join the Discord, and I'll be doing that in the after show. Also, before I end, I've got lots of calls, but just more housekeeping. As always, before the end of the show, I read the super chats. If you'd like me to read something on air, or you just want to, help support the show, super chats are an option. The more consistent way of doing it is Patreon. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. That's patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. I charge per live show. So for this month, it's going to be 4 times. In the past, I've done it after each show. The last 2 months, I've done it towards the end of the month. So those who are our patrons, be ready to see that come through. I am trying to get things set back up so that I can continue doing patron perks for those people who have weathered through as that has been happening. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. So let me dive in and actually grab the next caller. We talked to him last week, Don in Texas, our second Texas caller for the day. Don, you are live on the air. How's it going?
Hey, Eric. Good to hear from you again. On to you.
Oh, thank you. So what did you want to talk about?
Okay, your topic, is it possible to be a good person as a non-believer? And I want to echo John from the last caller. Absolutely, yes. As a matter of fact, it's better. You're better as a person outside of religion.
Why?
Because then you are not restricted to any programmed dogma that religion boxes you into. You are able to get outside the box. Leaving religion is actually so freeing, and so you're able to spread your wings, and you're able to make your own decisions and your own choices based off of your own convictions, rather than having to conform to the convictions and the protocols of the religion that you were coming from.
Well, so just to push back, I have, worked together with and become friends with pastors and people in religious communities who are not promoting bad things. They're very liberal churches who are very progressive in their views. And I don't necessarily think that the fact that you are leaving a religion somehow makes you better, because I don't think all religions carry with it the negative stigma that you're assuming. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, as when I called you last, I told you that I was Southern Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
Protestant, and then I went to Islam, and the straitjacketing of Islam was just absolute. But yeah, there are beliefs. I mean, not any. I mean, there's not any bad beliefs, but it's just like John said, there was a lot of judging and placing yourself over other people in a matter of goodness. I'm trying to think of how to explain this.
No worries. In the meantime, I do want to call out, there are a couple of people in the live chat who are having some really, really profound statements here. Big thoughts I would love to see reflected on the air. So you heard me, Jacques Palmer and Atheo Rakatru. Call in. Want to hear from you and talk about it. Don, I guess the thing is, it does seem like, the environments that you came from were pretty hardcore, but you have to understand, you have to know that not all churches are as hardcore as the ones that you experienced, right?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, I
I
mean that's it's.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What I was going to say was I feel like in your call and in the last call, this idea that you can be better kind of makes me feel very weird. The idea that non-belief
Yeah.
somehow can make someone a more moral person. I disagree with that. And I feel like that there needs to be some really good reasons backing it up for people to make that claim. I'm speaking as a non-believer. So I guess that's what I'm kind of pushing back against to find what that evidence for is.
Well, outside of belief and outside of religion, you are able to make and construct your own sense of good and act on that, instead of what they tell you or what they tell you to be. Um, you're able to, of course, you have the choice of doing right and wrong. Okay, outside of religion, there is no religion or no God um, needs to tell you what is good and what is right and wrong. You can make those decisions for yourself, and so you can make the decision yourself to have self-discipline. You can make that decision yourself to have honor. You can make that decision yourself to have self-control, and you can
So
define those things on your own.
So it's you made a couple
No,
of you made a
no
couple of
religion needed.
you made a couple of statements there about honor, about self control. Do you think that those things make people good? Do you think that that is what constitutes goodness?
Yes, it does, because when you execute self discipline within yourself, then you it's it's an act of not engaging in bad doing or bad behavior,
Not necessarily.
because you have.
I that this is definitely kind of a stoic point that a lot of people have brought up in the past, but all I got to do is point to those crazy militaristic, factions of people, training out in the woods, with their AKs. They have a lot of self-discipline. They have tons of it, and that self-discipline does not make them good or even better than anyone else in any way. If anything, it makes them kind of scary. But I don't necessarily think that makes them good.
You got me. You got me. I was military. Yes, I mean I was Navy, but I was one of those in the woods. I was out to sea, but
you,
boot camp.
you actually had some legitimacy, right? Instead of
I was.
those crazy, doomer militias. But I mean, either way, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was a squid. Yes, I was a squid.
I think that like having self discipline is great, but I don't think that necessarily is a makes you good or is a good thing in and of itself.
Well, it's a mechanism that you can use in the world,
Hmm.
and in other situations.
Hmm.
Like,
And you would
um,
probably agree with me that a lot of,
it's a way of
but how,
controlling your behavior, and
okay. Sorry,
yeah.
it's the delay. So, but I mean, you have to agree with me that there are a lot of religious people who have access to, having self control and self discipline. The lack of religiosity doesn't make that more or less accessible.
Well, I mean, like I coming from boot camp, it made me a completely different person, um, because of the self discipline and self control that it taught me, along with other things like time management skills.
But
But those are but those are skills that I was able to take outside of that and apply to my own self convictions, and to apply to situational instances that I come up through in the world, and I was able to make that choice
Don,
to not engage in bad behavior.
I'm not saying that self-control is a bad thing. I'm saying that it's not a religious thing. It's not a non-religious thing or a religious thing. Like, you don't need to back up the self-control piece. I'm just talking about, you listed it as something that was, beneficial in the context of non-belief. And I don't think that it is unique to non-belief. I think that there are lots of people who have self-discipline who are believers. And I think there are lots of people who have self-discipline who are terrible people. So I don't think that self-discipline lends itself to goodness. And I don't think it lends itself to lack of or inclusion of religiosity. I think that's kind of a red herring. It doesn't matter. So getting off, moving past self-discipline, what about your lack of belief makes you any better than anyone else?
Well, I mean, no, it doesn't make you. No, it's not that. It doesn't make you better than anyone else. It's just that the choice. I mean, because religion tells you and programs you to. They define self-discipline for you according to their religion, like or self-control, like Islam. There's the self-control in Islam is to like not even smell alcohol.
Got it. Okay, so
put your head down when a woman passes so that you don't look at her.
Okay,
things like that.
So it sounds like you're talking about, right? Instead of saying self-control, because self-control is kind of meaning a lot of things now. You're talking about dogmas and prohibitions, right? Halal and haram.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I would challenge you to think more about it. I think that a religious prohibition does not necessarily make someone more or less likely to behave in a good way or a moral way or an ethical way. And I think what I'm pushing people to want to think about and talk about is where it does, where it doesn't, and what the difference is. So I don't know. Don, I would challenge you to think about it and give a call back. Because I don't think,
well,
I don't think dogmas or prohibitions, I don't think a religious viewpoint that you shouldn't eat pork has anything to do with whether or not you're more or less moral. In fact, I'm sure there are plenty of vegan callers who have their own opinions, but it's, I don't know.
Well, do's and don'ts are different.
Well, but like a religious prescription to do a thing doesn't really necessarily impact whether or not someone is more or less good or more or less or has access to moral or ethical behavior. I don't know how they're linked. I don't think so.
Say again. Sorry. How's that go again?
Yeah, I don't think that a religious prohibition or a religious, a commandment to pray so many times a day, I don't think that has anything to do with being a good person. I don't think it makes you less likely or more likely to. So when I asked you, what about it? You listed those as, like, you listed... I'm kind of confused by the call, Don. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I know we've got a couple of callers to go on. I think we've kind of ran far afield. Let's go back, find the thread, and try again another day, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right, take care, Don.
All right.
I have no idea where that was going. I was trying, and I have no idea where that was going. I don't know if that means that I was good or bad. I have no idea. But I'm trying to keep the pace and make sure that we're continuing the conversation. Chris, our first non-Texan in Pennsylvania. You are live on the show. How's it going?
Good. How's things?
I'm kind of scratching my head after that last call, just trying to get myself back in the saddle. Let me just get you... get your lower third here, Chris, in PA. You can hear that clacking away. Chris, what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I just spent time in a mental health facility for my own mental health issues, my own mental health care.
Oh,
And while I was there as an atheist, there was a lot of other people. We actually went by PRS, people receiving services. But there was a lot of other PRS there that were religious, you know. And I felt like it wouldn't be right of me. It wouldn't be, you know, since it's the topic, good of me to kind of throw that seed of doubt at them, if that makes sense. I just wanted your opinion on it.
Hold on. I want to make sure that I got that right. Are you wondering if it would be a good or bad thing to instill doubt in others?
Correct. I mean, it's like, you know, when someone's sick in the hospital and throwing seeds of doubt at them, it kind of felt like that same wrong.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. I feel like a sense of time and place is something that is incredibly lacking for both religious and non-religious folks. The idea that someone should be evangelizing, right? If somebody is at a funeral and evangelizing, saying, you know, you need to give yourself over to Christ while you're crying at a funeral, that's not a good time to do that. You know, if somebody is in a health crisis, it's not a good time to evangelize, or like, because those people have more basic needs that need to be met at that time.
That's how I felt about it.
Yeah. No, I'm right there on the same page as you. Someone's religiosity, yeah, having that conversation is great, but making sure that person is able to engage with you is really important. I feel like when we're compromised, and I do think that, yeah, if you're receiving services for your health, there's a level of compromise there that I don't think you're able to necessarily engage with those ideas as hard as you would otherwise. And so it's taking advantage of a situation. I feel like that. Yeah,
it felt icky.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it really would be icky to do that in that situation. Now, that said, when it comes to speaking for yourself, I don't think it would be icky. You know, if somebody said, oh, hey, let's pray over you because it'll make you feel better, I think you have every right to say, look, you do what you're going to do, but don't do that to me because I don't believe that, and it doesn't make me feel good. Like, you have the right to do that.
Oh yeah, and I was very open about my atheism to those fellow PRS, you know, like, and they understood. We had actually like good, fun conversations about it.
Nice.
Actually, very similar to your show. They were friendly and everything. Like, even the one guy, he was like, he had a lot of problems going on with him, and to help him out, I was like, read me a Bible verse. Like, they had a Bible there that they could read from. You know, I'm like, read me a Bible verse. It makes you feel better. Go ahead, read a few of them to me.
Chris, you're the first.
But they knew I was atheist, so go ahead. Sorry.
No. Chris, there's a delay. It's just kind of always a part of it, and so as long as we're both kind of understanding of that, I wanted you to finish what you were saying, and so I appreciate that. What I was going to say was, you are the third caller today. The first two callers, their statement was that non-belief has the capacity, you know, gives people the ability to be better people than believers, religious folks. And I challenged them on that. You're the first caller today who has not made that statement. And
no, I don't believe that religion or lack of religion makes you a good person. I think it's up to the person. Well, their actions that they do.
And if anything, with your example, context, man. Like, the context of a thing, being able to read a situation and understand what a person's needs are and then meeting those needs is so much more important. And it sounds like your example of saying, hey, you're religious, read me a Bible verse, being able to put yourself aside so that you can listen to somebody else to help them take care of themselves. I bet you walked away from that feeling pretty damn good about yourself too.
I actually did.
Yeah, as you have that's awesome. You deserve that. Does that in any way negatively reflect on you though? Like, because you feel good about yourself, does that make the action less good?
No, I wouldn't say it does.
I don't either. What I'm pushing against is this religiously anchored idea of altruism. You know, if we're going to use the word altruism, doing things because they're good things, to have that little asterisk, but also you shouldn't be feeling good about it, you know, is a very religiously steeped idea that I think we just need to push out. But Chris, I don't know where else to go because I'm in agreement with you. I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you got out, and I'm glad that you got the help you needed. It's really important, and not enough people do it. So
Yeah, it was good for me.
good.
Got a lot of the stuff I needed for my own mental health care.
Good. Well, I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you shared. That is a really refreshing viewpoint that I think needed to be represented today. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Have a good rest of your day, Chris.
You too, Eric. Have a good one.
Bye. Heck yeah. I like it. Ooh, somebody's feeling called out. Before I take our next caller, I do want to go for longer today. So if anybody else wants to call in, I do want to take other calls. 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Call in, especially if you disagree or felt like something was not represented or said well. I want to hear from you. And in the meantime, let's talk to Steve in New York, who's feeling a little called out. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, you're the one who's saying stuff that would be better talked about on air than just left in the live chat. How's it going?
True. Okay.
Yeah.
So me and Bree actually talked for quite a while because we were talking about D&D and bringing up the point that I think you should stream D&D.
Okay.
But
if you can remember the topic, I can respond to the D&D thing.
The topic was, I think that you should also engage with the various streamers that play D&D, because last time we talked, you said that you really wanted more of that kind of community to be involved in your community, and I thought that that would be a good way to do it, is that if you engage with the streaming D&D community, which is also very progressive, at least the circles that I run in, very safe in terms of like when they engage and they actually start a game and they get people to come in, what they do is that they send out like a safety sheet to fill out that allows you to say, okay, these are good, these are not good, don't do this, red, yellow, green, that sort of thing. And what it allows is for people to stream in games and feel very safe about what they're doing, and also avoid all of those pitfalls that would get some people in trouble. And I think that it would be good for you if that was something that you were interested in.
So, like listening to those podcasts and watching those shows are a thing. Like I love doing that, and I love playing D&D. And that said, I feel like I'm afraid. Well, two things. One of them is I'm afraid that it would lose the joy that it gives me if I did it on air. And I think part of that is because when I play D&D, I play a character that's not me so that I can be not me for a little bit and fantasize and do that kind of stuff. And I feel like if I did it on air, I would feel like I need to be Eric Murphy still. Mm. And I think I would lose some of the magic of it.
Okay. I would say that there is, so I am involved in one game now that we stream. And I do it in an interesting way because nobody knows it's me. But the basic premise is that, if you should be able to do that. I think that it's a good way to teach yourself how to separate the storytelling from your own personal being. It's a hard lesson to learn for some people, but I think it's something that I don't think you would lose enjoyment from it.
Hmm.
It's a skill thing that I think that that we could, work on. But I don't want to, like, I get it's a hobby. I don't want to like force you to do a hobby part that you don't want to do. I think that would be a silly thing for me to engage on.
I I've definitely thought about it, and I don't know. Let me think about it. I think that
And
do,
you have my Discord anytime that you
yeah.
think that you want to give it a try. I have a lot of people that would be very interested in recruiting you for a game.
I think that part of it is
Oh, and really quick,
yeah.
there is one streamer that I think you would get along with very well. And what he does is that he runs games, or he has been for the last couple of months, running games for charities. Like all the money goes towards charities that he gets from the stream. He did an abortion drive last year,
Nice.
and he's doing a Palestine drive this year.
Nice.
So yeah, I think he raised like 5K last year for an abortion charity.
Nice. So
And he
that kind of thing
Go ahead.
I'd be really happy to help out with. I just
Yep.
I don't know. Right when COVID hit, I did a lot of Twitch streaming as well. And you know what it is, honestly? While I'm talking to you right now, I've got two screens in front of me.
Of course.
Two big
Every
screens.
good person does.
Right. And while I'm doing this, I have one half of this screen here is Call in Studio. It's got your name, what you're calling about. Our fantastic call screener this week is in there, and I can see everything that's going on, so I can decide who I'm going to talk to next. Next to that, I have a stream, where I'm watching the health of the connection with YouTube. I'm watching the live chat. I've got all of that stuff up. And then on the right side, I have my streaming software. I've got all of the layers of everything set up so that I can, do transitions and put lower thirds and do the intro and the outro and all kinds of cool stuff. I can do sound effects and all that if I want. I've got that going on. Now I'm monitoring all of these things while I'm talking to you. And I'm also like thinking about what the next call is going to be while I'm also engaging with you. It takes away from my ability to engage with you directly. And I think that when it comes to
one thing real
streaming,
quick, Eric, I think one of the things you also have to think about is that, like, unless you want to, you can always put it on your own channel if you want. But if you are doing it under, like, if you were to play with, do you mind if I name drop the channel that I'm talking about?
No, go for it.
Tales from the Table Studios on Twitch. For example, if you were to go in and play with this group, unless you want to do all of that, you would just be a player. You don't have to do the streaming. They're doing that on their side.
Well, why don't you shoot me some details and I'll take a look into it. I know this was not about what we wanted to talk about, so let's get into that. But I hope I got to answer that at least.
Yeah. I'll send you all that stuff.
Sounds good. Okay.
So I'll even, you know what I'll do? I'll drop. Do you mind if I drop the channel into chat real quick?
Let me look into it first. I have had bad experiences. Because I like to look into things before I get them out on the channel, just in case there's some crazy thing that's going to wind up getting me in hot water.
Just send it to you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so it says societal bounds regarding ethics and functioning within society.
Right.
Hit me.
So the conversation, I think, of the is it possible to be good as a non-believer? I kind of agree with the last caller that it's not the whether or not you believe, it's what you believe that is the issue. And this has been also engaged with in previous calls. The idea of a supremacist religious ideal is the problem, in my opinion. So, for example, the idea that Christianity is the only correct religion, that my sect is the only correct religion and everyone else is evil. There are a lot of religions that don't have that supremacy narrative. And I think that that is the first step, if you are a religious believer, to not have that narrative, to engage and be a quote unquote good person. The second part is the societal bounds of what we can engage with. We, as you know, as a leftist, and being a dialectical materialist, we have to engage with the idea that, you know, people are for the most part, of course, there are always exceptions to these rules, but we have to engage with the fact that people are what they have lived, and engaging with the idea that we can only really engage with ethics that we have been exposed to. If it's hard to become a vegan if we've never even heard what veganism is, if that's something, for example, most of us are not vegans, but there are a group of people that believe that, you know, forcing animals to do things for our own benefit is not ethical.
Right.
But 99% of the population don't agree with that statement totally. So yeah, I guess that's my basic premise right now.
That it's all contextual.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. And I definitely think that that is a knock on, you know, really dogmatic religious viewpoints, is the idea that our morals are somehow the exact same as they were for people living 2,000 years ago is ridiculous.
Right.
So I can agree with you there. But I guess the question there is, do we really think that... I don't think, like, I definitely know there are religious communities who do that, but I definitely have also seen religious communities who don't. And so because of that, I wouldn't necessarily see that as a strike on religiosity as much as I see that as a strike on fundamentalism. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have, like, most people that Buddhism, for example, very, not a lot of people have a lot of strikes against Buddhism as a religion. However, if we look at, like, the recent issues in, I think it's Myanmar, where these suddenly these a Buddhist priest or Buddhist monk, I forget the exact term, is basically saying that, you know, Muslims don't belong here, they're evil, they're wrong. Not knowing, I don't know where he got that from his texts, but he's apparently using Buddhist texts for these arguments. And, you know, we have this sudden supremacy argument that Buddhism is the correct place as like almost like a nationalistic ideal of that area. So yeah, I think that this is a problem of, like, as soon as you start saying that, you know, these certain ideologies are evil from their onset, we have these issues. Now, that's not to say that there aren't ideologies that are evil on their onset. We can, you know, not go very far to say Nazis or
Fascism in general.
Fascism, yeah.
To say it that way, could we just say that any ideology can be used for really shitty purposes by people who want to try and validate their bigotry? And if that's the case, then religiosity is, it doesn't matter that it's religious, it's just any ideology.
Yeah, I mean, we can easily conceive of a ideology that can't do that, I think. I mean, or it'd be very difficult to do that.
Well, so as an example, right? Because I know we're getting kind of like, we're kind of floating away here. So just to kind of ground it, let's go with capitalism, right?
And I think me and you and I probably have a different opinion on that.
Maybe. I definitely think that in the United States and just in general, you know, a lot of people have kind of conflated capitalism with morality and viewing making money and things that make them money as good things. And so you see people justify their behavior, right? Maybe revoking someone's vacation that they were going to take off, or firing someone who's worked at a company for 15, 20 years because you can hire somebody brand new for 20% less. Just deliberately understaffing places so that you can save money in the long run. All of those things are deeply immoral, in my opinion, but would serve the ideology of capitalism, right?
Yeah, I think
So-
for me, I think that the issue with capitalism is when it becomes your culture.
Well, we're definitely there. It's already
Yeah,
happened.
no, definitely. Yeah.
So that being the case, I don't think that religiosity is any different than capitalism there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that the issue with capitalism is that when it basically devolves into the keeping up with the Joneses mindset, where Bobby got a new pair of shoes, I need to get a new pair of shoes. Oh, Jim got a new hat, I got to get a new hat. And that's the only thing that matters to the culture, is this view that I'm as rich as everyone else around me, rather than bettering myself or bettering the people around me.
I don't even think we're there anymore. Keeping up with the Joneses was something for boomers. It's not something that's available to us anymore. Most people can't even afford a home.
They can't. Yes, I agree that the being able to do it is more difficult. My perception, though, however, is that we still have this engagement where we are trying to do that, where we are always trying to. Sorry, my boyfriend is acting cute in front of me. Give me a second. He's actually about to go and do a play. He's an actor. But anyway,
nice.
Where was I? Yeah. So the issue, I think, is that there are some, especially in the United States, there are a lot of cultures that there are a few cultures that are like, I need these new pair of shoes. I need this specific brand of clothing to look the part. I live in New York City. I see that all the time. Like people just walking around looking like billboards for specific companies.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so guilty of doing that for Lucky Brand. It's terrible.
I used to be that way for Affliction until they went like American nationalist.
Yeah.
Goth.
Okay. So let's wrap this back around to ethics and goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
you want to do that, or you? Want
me I wanted to see where your point kind of played in there.
Yeah. So my point is that we have to understand that if a person is growing up, and I grew up in the middle of the upstate New York countryside, very conservative, and now I'm a pansexual, polyamorous leftist, who
fuck yeah,
who that did not exist where I grew up. But that was a lot of being exposed to other people's mindsets and going to school and doing all those things. And that if you don't have that, if you grow up in a very conservative household and those are the only people that you engage with and those are the only people that you have as a support system, we can't really expect that those people are going to have the same mindset when we meet them that we do. Or it would be an extreme example if they did.
I mean, I agree. I think that the kind of point here is
and really quick, and to make it and kind of, and I think the other problem we have is that we blame them for that. And I think that can be unethical as well. Like the idea that we don't engage instead of like, oh, this person who grew up in, I don't know, Mississippi or Alabama, and that's all they've known, and coming out and being like, oh, this is just an evil person. Probably not. I mean, most of the people I engage with probably have the same, a lot of the fundamental values. They just come out differently when vocalizing. And they think that they're right, or they think that they're of the ethical mindset.
But that's the only context they have. Yeah,
Exactly.
And the reason I'm kind of going into this is the Ray Comfort mindset. You know, it's that this idea that because it's the only context you have, because the only times that you've engaged with this is when you've absolutely viewed being a good person as a reflection of your Christianity. To them, being good without God doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so the way that I'm trying to bring this up is I want to challenge people. Can you be good without God? If you can, why? And, you know, I've had callers today who say, you know, it can make you better. I challenge them on it. I don't feel like they've really given me a sufficient reason to accept that claim. And then we have people like you who are saying, you know, we got to deal with it with empathy, understanding the context of where they're coming from. So I think it's important to reiterate that. Yeah, no, that context is the entire reason why I'm bringing this up, because I feel like there are too many people who have not engaged with morality outside of their religion. And we need to talk about it if we're going to have productive discussions.
Okay, so here's a context. Here's a possible Jesus, I'm only running off of 5 hours of sleep. I apologize.
So good.
A possible fight between us. Okay.
All right, and then
is it possible to have a objective morality without a supernatural being?
See, we already had this.
Oh, did we? I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I had this topic a few weeks ago. I don't think we're going to disagree with this at all. And it's because objectives are things that we create. An objective is not necessarily an ontological statement. It can be axiom. It can be an axiom. And axioms are things that are within our control. And so if we collectively decide that this is our objective, then anything done in service of that objective is, that is, to keep using the word, that is objective. That is exactly what that is. I feel like externalizing objectivity to some nebulous God, you might as well just get rid of the word, because it's no longer.
Yeah, I mean, I like the metaphor. I know the name is not great, and I don't know where he got it from, but Matt Dillahunty used the metaphor of like playing chess, right? There is an objective with chess, and if we're playing chess, aka life, there are certain things and bounds that we have to follow in order to get to the goal, and there are objective choices that you can make that are going to get you closer to that goal. And if you find someone, aka a fascist, who is just going to flip the table, well, we're not playing chess anymore. Now we're just flipping tables, and there's no engagement with that. Now, the counter to that argument would be, what if we can't agree what game we're playing? Perhaps we're playing checkers and we don't even know it. You know, if we can't even, if the game isn't what we think it is, how can we find objectives?
And I think that's part of why in what I do my best to listen and meet people where they are. Because yeah, if we're not even on the most basic understanding, then we're just talking past each other and there's no reason for the conversation at all.
I don't know if I agree with that statement. I think
Really?
that I mean it's possible that you and I are wrong about what game we're playing, and if we engage with somebody who,
I don't think it's possible to be wrong. Somebody can say that their objective in life is to glorify God, and what they do to glorify God, you know, whatever they do is in service of that. And so if that person decides that living a long life, you know, is not the objective, you can't tell them, no, you're really actually trying to. No, they have their own goals. I can't say, no, you're not. right? Am I going to gatekeep them out of their own ideology? I can disagree with the ideology, but I can't tell them that that's not true.
Right. I think there's an argument there. I'm just having a hard time putting it together.
No worries. Think about it and call back, because I think that'd be useful. I think that.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. Also, Steve, can I ask you a question?
No, you can't.
Damn it. Okay. I'll talk to you next time. No, I just you have your pronouns as comrade, and I'm having trouble integrating that, and so I'm noticing I'm using your name instead of saying comrade because I'm a little awkward around that.
You can use he, him. It's fine.
But is that what you want?
I'm good with both. I think comrade is the most based non-binary pronoun, but that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion, man.
Like, then I'm just gonna call you friend. How about that?
Friend? That's it? That's all you give me? Just friend?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good one, Steve.
No, okay, it's fine.
Have a good one, friend.
You too.
See, this is why I like ongoing conversations, because you can actually develop relationships with people, and I think it's really fun. Holy crap, we have another Steve? We've got back-to-back Steves? Steve in Pennsylvania.
It's your favorite, Stephen.
Is it? Oh, you're going to just get me in trouble now. What are you doing? What?
Well, I had to make sure all the colors of Stephen were represented, all the colors of PA were represented, so I had to. It wouldn't be Sunday if I didn't chat with you for a few minutes. So there you go.
The other Steve is in New York, not PA. So
right, but we had two Texas and a PA. See, I've been paying attention.
You have
as the show has gone on. So I have to represent for PA as well. So there's that.
Right.
And a fellow pansexual in New York, a fellow Stephen pansexual. So
right.
There you go. So very excited about the way things are turning out today.
So let me see. Is it Yuns? What are Yuns calling in about today? Did I use that correctly?
I don't use that, but I'll go with it.
No?
Sounds good to me.
Oh.
I'm he, him. I'm happy with he, him. I'm not non-binary. I'm just pansexual.
Cheers to that. I'm right there with you. So it says it says in the notes, being good is an ongoing process and challenge. The definition of good has a community aspect and is ever changing.
Yeah.
Do you think that goodness is a collaborative term that we kind of work together to define goodness?
Oh, sure. Well, that's been part of the problem. It's because it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because the whole idea behind religion, as authoritarian as it tends to be, is that they're all agreeing on what good is and what the right way is to do things and the right way is to live, and to your point about glorifying God and so forth. So there is that aspect. I'm the Stephen in Amish country that we've talked about my life here before. So one of the things that came up recently, and this is and it kind of flows into what other people were saying, because I was impressed with particularly the previous Stephen, not just because of the name, but talking about D&D for charity and doing things that are extending off of what people are already doing. And one of the things I've talked about living here and being in a same-sex marriage and what people assume about that, where I'm in an asexual same-sex marriage. Despite my sexuality, our model is polygamous, and that's what we do. And we don't go out wearing T-shirts about it necessarily, but if people ask, we tell them. But they first get to know us as who we are and make a determination as to how good we are or not.
Did you say
something came up? Sorry, go ahead.
Did you say polygamous or polyamorous?
Polyamorous, I guess, is the better term. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're allowed to have romantic relationships outside of this marriage that is our primary relationship. So polyamorous would be more accurate.
Definitely. I don't think if one of you was a sister wife, it would be a very different conversation.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And the house is not big enough for that, and so no.
Okay, go on.
But so something came up recently. I watched Bill Maher, and I don't always agree with everything he says because he can be kooky. But he brought up something that I found very interesting, and it's something that came up here locally. So I'm very involved with the local community theater, and they are going to have a drag show for Pride this year, which is great. And I tend to be, when you do engage me on my areas of concern, whether it be religion or sexuality or what have you, I tend to be a little militant, and I don't always listen. And I freely admit that. But in this particular case, when it came up that they were doing this drag show, my first thought was about Drag Queen Story Hour that has been done in the region, in Lancaster and York, here in Pennsylvania, and there had been protests and security issues. So my first thought was, oh my God, what are you doing? And they said, oh no, we've worked with the police, and they addressed all my concerns, or at least what they didn't address, I'll go over with my therapist. But in any event, they said they were going to do this. And I think it's great to support the community. But Bill Maher, to bring it back to him, talked about Drag Queen Story Hour and said, are we doing it for the kids or are we doing it for us? And I thought about that a lot, because one of the things that he said was, what is a child more likely to encounter in daily life? Are they going to go into a drag show? Are they going to meet a drag queen on the street? Or are they going to meet other kinds of people? And so he said this about a month ago. And so over the last few weeks, this idea has been stirring in my head. And I met someone who grew up in the town that I live in, and she was the only Black person in her graduating class from high school. Mm-hmm. And when she went through the people of color that were in her high school, it was, well, this one was half Puerto Rican and this one was half Asian. So it was all these mixed race people, but basically it's very white, Republican, and conservative here. And so is the town where the community theater is. I went online and looked up the closest Jewish temple, and it's 45 minutes to an hour away.
Stephen?
So even the Jews here are not represented.
Stephen?
So I started to toy with this idea of a diversity story hour where we bring in
Stephen?
disabled people in wheelchairs.
Hey, Stephen?
People who are deaf. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that we're aiming for brevity. I want to be able to.
Sorry. So yeah.
I want to wrap this back.
Long and the short of it, I'll go real short.
Yeah.
Long and the short of it is the idea of meeting people where they are and addressing what their needs are is also part of being good. So that it's not just about our own advocacy or our own position, but that, to the point of previous Steve's, the idea of what the game is, I feel like the game should be to get other people to play your game without them realizing it.
Ooh.
And so the idea of exposing them. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying strong disagree. But I want you to give me a reasoning.
Yeah. Well, the idea being that if I bring in a group of people from the community who come in for diversity versus one specific piece, they're more likely to accept my niche area if they're accepting all these other things when we have them play together. So to show that there are differences in society of many types, whether it's religious minorities here, ethnic minorities here, or sexual minorities here, that it's all the same playing field when you look at it. And if you're able to accept one thing, it's easier for you to accept these other things. And maybe it's chess in a way, and getting them to play chess, to his point, when they might be playing checkers because they're more black and white about things, for lack of a better term. But you show them based on where they are.
So exposing people to new and good ideas, I'm absolutely up for exposure and for people to broaden their horizons. I don't think that's necessarily getting someone to play your game without them realizing it. I want people to walk into their decision making with eyes open. You know what I mean? Like getting people exposed to other viewpoints and seeing that they're not evil is great. I don't think it's in any way tricking them, and I don't think the goal should ever be to trick someone into doing the right thing. If you know what I mean. And also, it doesn't get brought up enough. I can't stand Bill Maher. I can't stand Bill Maher, and I will be absolutely consistent about it. I've been wrong about a lot of things before. I've been wrong on the air, and it's cringy, and I know that I can be insufferable. But the worst is when I'm confidently wrong, and when I'm confidently insufferable, and I feel like Bill Maher does that very well. And because of that, I crawl right out of my skin.
I understand, and I apologize if I triggered you. I thought he raised a good point, because I hadn't really thought about it that way, in the way that he was presenting the argument, and that was why I brought it up, just to give him credit. But we can just talk about him as an on-the-air media personality, and we don't have to say his name. No.
I don't get the chance to call that out very often, and I welcome the shit that it brings. So you're giving me an opportunity to bring that up. Don't worry about it. Not a problem. That said, I don't know. I feel like we've kind of moved a bit far afield, and also my ADHD. Stephen, are you a Disney princess? I'm hearing so many birds in the background. It sounds...
I'm sitting on my porch outside. I'm not quite the Disney princess. At least the gown is at the dry cleaner.
Okay, so, it sounds like you're getting ready to go to the ball. I'm just saying. In my head canon, you're a Disney princess, and that's fantastic.
I'll go with that. It just depends on which one you want to pick, but I'll go with it.
Well,
I'm not going to be Sleeping Beauty and asleep for the whole time, so I have to be an active Disney princess a bit more. But yes, I'll go with that.
Fair enough. Well, Stephen, thank you for calling in. I feel like I'm starting to blur a bit because we moved on to a couple of different things, and that's both my fault and your fault. We both kind of just... You seem like the kind of person... I feel like this episode has been filled with a lot of people that I would love to just sit down and have a beer with. If you ever find yourself in the Pacific Northwest, you need to give me a shout.
Absolutely.
All right.
I would love that. I would enjoy it very much.
Tell your partner they're awesome, and to break a leg for their show. What show are they doing?
He is in the middle of Emperor's New Clothes, I want to say. I always get the name wrong, because I keep thinking of that David Spade movie, so Emperor's New Groove, and that's not it. It's Emperor's New Clothes. So he's doing that one, and we just did a vocal recital yesterday. That was my first one that I've ever done. So
nice.
We were singing yesterday. Yeah.
Well,
it was good. I sang an arietta.
Oh, look at you!
In Italian. Yes. Very hoity-toity.
I hope that it brings you joy, and thank you for calling in.
Thank you for taking my call. You have a good Sunday, and best to thee.
Will do. I'll let them know. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, okay. I think I've got brain power for one more call. I know that we've kind of had trouble touching on things because talks about goodness and ethics, morality, all of it runs the gamut, runs a field, and it's difficult to really dial in. And so I'm going to try and do that as we talk to a regular caller to the show, Philosophistry.
Hey, Eric. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm feeling a little more brain drained than I thought I would, but I'm going to do my absolute best. I'm putting in your name in the in the lower third. In the meantime, though, talk to me. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, a brain drained Eric is good for me because I'm going to win this one then. Okay, but I want to talk to you because you were saying that that just leaving religion doesn't necessarily make somebody a better person, and I feel like that needs a really big asterisk after that. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Because the sin is a thing that goes against God, and religious morality is largely based around not sinning, and God's word can be kind of twisted and doesn't even say that things like slavery and stuff like that are a sin. So I feel like just leaving a religion and getting that redefinition of morality does give somebody more of an opportunity. I mean, it's got to make it a lot easier to just be a better person to all people, you know? Am I wrong? Am I off base? I might be wrong, but I'm thinking it does, man. I feel like I
Okay.
kind of disagree with that.
No. So what I love is that you're taking this stance so that because my inner, look, I want to agree with you. I want to agree with you.
You want to.
And because of that, I think you can ask V or any people that I'm close with. It's things that I want to agree with that I challenge hardest and that I push back against most. And so
I'm prepared for the bulldozer.
You're letting me push back. So first off, I think that the definition of, how religion looks at morality is a very black and white one. I think that there are lots of religions, even fundamentalist, enclaves that would disagree with that assessment. It's not just about sin. And in day to day, what we would call it is the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. And I know that's a lot of Christianese, but for ex-Christians who are watching, they're probably nodding their head, that we socially and biologically have incentive to help each other, right? It hurts when we watch other people hurt. And it feels good to help one another. And the way that we contextualized that as Christians is we viewed that as, that's the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. We let God into our hearts, and now God is speaking to us like a little Jiminy Cricket. And those day-to-day behaviors get attributed to their religion. And so when you say that, my first thought is, I didn't do things because, so like avoiding sin is not being a good person. It's just not being a bad person. Right? Not helping the homeless isn't a sin, and that's why we helped the homeless every once a month on Sundays when I was growing up. I feel like, just placing that on sin, I don't think gets you closer to being a good person. And I don't think that Christians would agree that that gets them closer to being a good person. Or at least a lot of them.
That's a fair point, but I would also argue that religious morality in general revolves around God's will, right?
I think it's attributed to God's will. I don't think it
What do you mean attributed?
Yeah,
why would you say attributed as opposed to revolves? Because when I'm gonna use kind of a personal anecdote here, but when I'm talking with Christians online and they're like, well, Christians give the most because blah, 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 and Christianity does all this and blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And many of them frequently attribute all of this giving to serving God and God's will and all of that, right? And then everything that's bad is against God. So like they would even potentially say that things like being lazy or not doing the good things is against the will of God too, because you shouldn't just be accumulating wealth and stuff like that for yourself without doing the good things, essentially, right? And so that in itself, if you did accumulate the wealth, if you did have, but then you never gave back, would be going against God, because of the whole God's will thing, right? But then sin being against God, so basically that would be a sin to be, what would you call that? Slovenly? I don't know, just wealthy, greedy.
Oh, well,
right?
Not necessarily. Look at the prosperity gospel.
Okay.
Look at the crystal.
I don't know much about specifically the prosperity gospel.
So prosperity gospel is a very, very popular. It's where the televangelists, the very wealthy with the private jet pastors, What they argue is that God in your lifetime will reward you for your religious behavior, and that you will get rich, and your wealth is a, how do I describe it? Is evidence of God's favor.
Ah, ew, that's kind of disgusting.
Isn't it?
That's so disgusting.
If you did not know that, I'm so sorry. But yeah, no, that.
I mean, I've heard of the prosperity gospel before, and I've heard that it was like a warping of the traditional Christian stuff, like Catholics don't prescribe to it and most Lutherans don't prescribe to it, but I've never actually dug into what the prosperity gospel, what the actual tenets of it are.
Oh yeah, no,
that's disgusting, though.
Yeah, pour yourself a stiff drink and look up Benny Hinn. Holy crap.
I might have to.
It's brutal.
I might have to.
But yeah, so
okay.
That kind of pushes back there, and I think that is actually an example there of, it is not, I don't think God is a person who has a will. I don't think there is a God who is saying, this is my opinion. And so saying that something aligns with that character's will gives a sentience to a character that I don't think exists. Instead, what I think we do, and what I think that a lot of religious folk do, is they have their own concept of what that God's will is. And they will find verses that line up with their pre-existing views to justify their behavior, that they can then attribute to God's will. That's why I say attribute and not just directly is God's will, because when you point out, all of these different dogmatic views, just the example of the prosperity gospel is evidence that it's different. It changes from one group of Christians to the other, one group of religious people to the other.
Yep.
And because of that,
and so that
it's just attribution.
Yeah, so that subjectiveness is why I think that when they leave religion, right? No matter which denomination or sect or whatever they were in, when they leave religion and they just start recognizing it not as like people who are in my little insular group who are definitely following God's word versus all the others, when they start to just realize, oh, humans, you're a human and I'm a human, and this is a human-built society with collective social agreements, and that's what makes it function. So when they start to realize that it's not just religion and God doing it, that they can just be better people. Like I just think it just makes them better people. Like, because they could be part of a religion where being good means going to funerals and saying God hates fags and protesting at military funerals, right? And that's like the Westboro Baptist thing, and that was good to them. But then that Westboro Baptist, that guy that ran it, his daughter left the religion, and she was like, oh, that might not be so good.
So
like, I can see now that even though I think saying God hates fags is a loving thing, that's not actually that's not perceived as a loving thing by other people.
No.
Oh.
No,
I think that.
I think that what you're onto here is that, what is that quote? To get good people to do bad things is uniquely, you need religion. And while I can agree with you on that front, I think those are examples, but can't be the general rule. And to say that it would necessarily make you better in some cases, in some examples, like the one that you gave of, people leaving the Westboro Baptist Church. Absolutely. I think that their capacity for empathy greatly increased when they left their religion. But I feel like that might say more about Westboro Baptist than it does about Christianity. And again, you're talking to somebody who wants to agree with you. But I don't think but I don't think that's a good enough reason to agree with you.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the nuance that you're bringing into it, but I would then argue
Last one, and
the
then
othering.
oh,
Okay,
go ahead.
okay. So the othering of people, right? So like the anti-Semitic views that Christians held throughout Europe, and maybe it was just European views that were anti-Semitic, but I know for sure it was also a Christian thing that led up to the Nazis, right? And or we can talk about the anti-Muslim views that are in many of the Christian churches here in America.
Mhm.
Or even the anti-Semitic views that are still here in many of the Christian churches here in America. So instead of viewing Muslims and Jews as just fellow humans, they view them through that lens of, well, you're a Muslim, you can't be good. Muslims worship the devil, they worship Satan. The Muslim God is fundamentally evil. Blah blah blah. Right? All the stuff that they kind of say. And again, my perception might be distorted, but
Well, so
that's kind of how I view that. Many of them view these things, mostly because of personal anecdotes, but also because of the way it plays out anytime there's a big world event, right?
yeah, so I when I use terms like Islamophobic, or I use terms like anti-Semitic, I'm specifically talking about the religion and all of that, not necessarily a group of people. I
Sure.
think, actually, I don't even need to say I think. I have experienced lots of atheists who have continued their bigotry and indoctrination long after they left the church. And I think
Yeah.
that losing your religion does not remove the bigotry. I wish it did, but the fact is, we have so much more work to do that I feel like the responsible thing for me to do is call out on the air that just because somebody has left their religion does not mean they're less likely to be a bigot. And we really need to evaluate that. You're coming from a place of assuming that someone's done the work. And we can't assume that.
That's fair. That's fair. I definitely, am capable of falling into traps in my thinking.
Well,
Just as susceptible to that
you're
as
too
anybody else
damn
is.
optimistic. Have you thought about that philosophistry? Have you thought that maybe you're giving people more credit than they deserve?
That I'm also prone to falling into that trap too. Damn
Well,
it, you're calling me out.
Well, I think that I think that we need to be responsible for calling each other out, especially when it comes to that, especially with what's going on politically right now. That just because you're not religious doesn't exempt you from the bigotry that you may be perpetuating. So, that said,
That's a pretty good message.
I hope so. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe it'll cancel me tomorrow. I don't know. Now that I'm a free agent on YouTube, I don't know how cancelable that. You know what? I'm not inviting that. Screw it. Philosophistry. Have a wonderful
Fair.
rest of your day. Thank you for calling in.
Have a wonderful day, Eric.
Okay, let's move on and talk to our last caller for the day. We have Atlas in Utah. Atlas, you are live on the air.
Hi.
Hello,
I
hello.
spoke to you in real life at Faithless Forum a couple years ago.
You did? I'm doing my best to listen. If there's any way that you can speak into the microphone a little bit louder.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No,
Is that better?
it is better. Yeah, nice. Faithless Forum. Which one?
It was, I think, the last one. I went by Sarah. Also lived in California.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you for calling in.
So I'll get right to it. I realized I was stumbling over it when talking to the call screener, like how to say this. So I've been having a conversation with a friend from like elementary and high school, and it's been about God. He's still a believer very strongly, and we've been discussing sort of evidence, and he has reasons. A lot seem to do with connections and similarities between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me a long thing about that. And I said simply, if I was to give you all that you have said, how does that prove God? And his response, I got his response last night. It was just quick, but I'm so confused as to how to address this. It's only a few, like 2 or 3 sentences.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
He said, any entity with attributes and ability to create a universe and imbue it with love and purpose is not a simple geometric shape that can be measured with compass and protractor. What we do have access to are degrees of certainty, and my investigation to this point has made me far more certain than not. And that keeps hitting me as sort of circular or assuming, sort of assuming already what he's trying to prove or what I'm trying to get him to prove.
Yeah, so it sounds like your friend is demonstrating the strength of their conviction and
Mm-hmm.
not trying to prove anything.
That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, I think that for me, it says in the description that your God said that, or your friend said that their God is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what you mean by the compass and protractor piece? Is that where you got that from?
Yeah, I think that's what he means. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that what you can do is you can engage with confidence value, right? How do you measure your confidence in a thing? And how confident should you be when it comes to claims, right? If if you want a babysitter for your kid, you want to get a little bit more information than someone just saying they're the best babysitter, right? What is your level of confidence when it's just a claim, and how much evidence do you need before you go, okay, I'm going to trust you in my home with my kid? And if you don't have enough evidence to back up what would make you comfortable with a babysitter, why would you be that comfortable with a God? Definitely, I love that you're having this conversation with somebody who wants to have the conversation with you, and reiterating to them that this is a conversation, and if they want to talk to you about it, then they're going to need to engage with you, giving some evidence. But for you to just say, I don't know how that is evidence for your God, I don't know why you would think that's convincing for me. Maybe that'll maybe it'll get them to think a bit, You can honestly, you honestly have called me and said, this has confused me. I don't know what they're getting at. If you tell them, this has confused me, I don't know what you're getting at. I think that'll help. I don't think that in any way reflects poorly on you. If anything, it lets them know that they were a bad communicator.
Yeah, I never thought about it going about it that way. We have weeded through, because this has been going on for a couple weeks.
Nice.
We have weeded through. It's like, there's quite a few. He tends to get very preachy in his messages, and it's all through typing, but they go on, and there's a lot of fallacious talk. Kind of. I've tried to point out some things. It's actually quite fascinating. The more he talks, the more I kind of figure out how he's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gets really exhausting. Part of me is actually thinking, after his response last night that I shared with you, I was actually thinking I need to give him the phone number to call you on Sunday.
I would love to, definitely. Let me know if reach out to contact skepticgeneration@gmail.com. And yeah, if your friend is interesting, I'd be happy to give them time and have that ongoing bit. I don't want to snipe this conversation out from under you, though, either. If you're having fun with this, then you should continue to do it.
I figured if I reach my max in frustration, then I'm definitely gonna shoot him your way.
You should.
Incredibly cerebral. Very like he thinks about everything.
I love it. Those
And
are
I
those
know
are my
some of
favorite.
this has tortured him for years, but
Those are my favorite. Yeah, definitely. Give him the link to the show. Let him see what we're all about, and maybe we can have that conversation here.
all right, that would be good.
But
Other than that, yeah, I think I really like the direction. I think I've been bogged down with one direction and trying to figure out how to attack it. So you're able to force my brain in another one.
yeah,
It will be more helpful.
honestly, just saying, hey, I don't know how that's backs up what you said. Can you give me more info here? What I think here is there are a lot of thought-stopping techniques that I was taught when I had questions. When I was leaving my faith, there are a lot of things that people told me that had a really good way of making my brain stop. And one of them was alluding to mystery and saying, well, we can't know God's ultimate grand design, and that's the kind of thing that makes your brain stop. I don't need to think about it anymore because I'm not even supposed to be able to understand it. That's not a good reason, and it doesn't help anyone. It just makes you stop thinking about it. And so the response there should be, so how does that help you? What does that mean? Because ultimately what it means is shut up. Ultimately what it means is I don't have to think about this, la, 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 and, move on. I could be wrong. I'm happy for people to call in and tell me that I'm wrong, but so far, that's been the effect of it.
Luckily with him, he's loves these conversations. So he would be the last person to ever tell you shut up. However, that might be the message he kind of gives in some ways.
Well, the thing is, what a lot of people do is they'll go back to their other friends and they'll talk about it. They'll say, hey, let's workshop this. I've seen it happen and I've been a part of it. And for some people, they may not be saying, stop thinking about it. They may have just been taught a technique that gets them to stop thinking about it. And because it's worked for them, it might work for you. So here's my thought stopping technique. They're not necessarily.
That makes sense. I mean,
it's not.
I had that with. Oh, sorry.
No. It's the delay. Go ahead.
That was. Now looking back, that was very apparent to me when leaving the Catholic Church and then joining a non-denominational Calvary. I think we spoke about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
In person.
Yes.
Yes.
Fellow Calvary Chapel.
Yes. And then I also used it again, trying to find truth. I used it or got the same sort of feeling when I was leaving the Mormon church. It's sort of that thought stopping process, or them trying to kind of convince you. It's like, those are your questions, just put them on the shelf for right now, or we won't understand everything until.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And it's not even. You know what it makes me think of, honestly? It makes me think of parents who spank their kids. I think there are a lot of parents who spank their kids because they were spanked and they were like, this is how you parent. Right? Not necessarily because they want to hurt their kids, not necessarily because they're frustrated or think that they have to. In fact, I've seen, parents who have been very, very conflicted when it comes to spanking their kids, but they were taught that is what you do. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have bad intention. What it does mean is that they have not been exposed to other things and they need to be exposed to those other things. But the fact is that somebody repeating what they have been taught and perpetuating a bad idea, or a bad way of doing things, it's human. Those thought-stopping techniques, I just want to, put this home, is it's not always intentional. Often it's just learned.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of that I do in many other things, and I realize, why am I repeating this?
Right?
Because I learned it.
Because that's how I was taught. This might be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's awesome talking to you. Thank you for following me. Thank you for watching the show.
Oh yes, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, especially with just the way you're able to talk to people has been so refreshing. So there's a lot of times where I find people calling other shows, and I'm like, no, don't do that. You're not going to get the conversation you want. But
maybe they are. Some people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, some people want that, but I'm not going to kink shame.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I really enjoy listening to you and your conversations. They definitely are a nice starter for my Sundays or Mondays if I can't listen live. But
I appreciate that. Well, thank you for calling, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. You definitely helped.
Yay! Good. All right. Bye.
Bye.
What a sweetheart. This has been fun. I do want to read a couple of live chats. Lucas Black, thank you for your super chat. Feeling good for good deeds is an evolutionary trait meant to protect ourselves and our species. Pure altruism shouldn't exist. I definitely agree with you that doing good things can make you feel good. I definitely think that there is an evolutionary advantage to that, but it's nature and nurture. Because of that, I don't want to say it's purely evolutionary, but there is an evolutionary foundation that's in there. And I don't know, pure altruism shouldn't exist. I guess it depends on how you define altruism. I think that altruism, the way you're describing it, is something that should only be in the domain of religion. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that that's a good word that we can continue to use. We just shouldn't view it in a religious context. But I don't know. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. I am going to be hopping into the after show from here. So if you want to join and just hang out, the link to the Discord where you can join us is in the description, and it's also in the live chat. So I hope to see you there. I want to seriously thank patrons. The show is we're steady. So we're still pretty close to making the show self-sufficient, and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Being able to support this and make this happen is an undertaking, and there's no way that I'd be able to do it alone. It's because of you that this show can happen. So thank you for that. If you'd like to support the show, consider going to patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. It is truly, truly appreciated. You'll see more details and all of that there. In the meantime, though, I am going to get things wrapped up and head on over to the after show. Wow, last one of the month. It's been a good month. We've had some really good conversations. So until next week, I'm Eric Murphy, and I'm glad we had this talk.